Welcome everybody to episode 26 of Soar and Pair, Why Not Together?
Hello.
That's Sandy. I'm Jim.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
And together we make a very balanced couple, we hope, which is what we're going to talk about today, is balancing the traditional male-female roles in a relationship.
Yep.
So we are excited to talk about that.
Yeah.
So let's balance it out.
Let's balance it out.
That's right. We're always trying to sort of, and really with this podcast, it is really about a balance that we're working on, isn't it? Always.
It is.
We don't really plan like you say this and I say that on it just
kind of flows. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You want to introduce us first?
But you mean I forgot the tagline. I was so excited about balance.
Yeah, he was. Just jumped right in. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the reminder because Soar and Pair, Why Not Together, or Soar and Pair is soaring together to explore new adventures while inspiring others to create their own. Now we're good. Okay, boom. And that's how we help each other out. When I forget something, she reminds me, vice versa.
Vice versa.
So I'll start with you in the weekly update.
Okay. This week I took the week off work.
I am so jealous. I took part of it off. She got the whole thing off.
It was awesome. I have to go back tomorrow. Not quite ready.
Is anybody ever ready
right?
to go back to work after
Yeah,
they've had either a staycation like you did or a vacation?
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, I think it's universally like, no matter how much you enjoy your job and like it, it's still like, but...
This felt so good. Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, it was a great week. Like Jim said, he took part of the week off and we went up to Sedona and just kind of did our thing.
Wearing my Sedona shirt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. And my necklace.
Yeah, she made out pretty good.
I did.
In Sedona. Instead of the hiking like we usually did, we did the shopping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
it was pretty awesome. He spoiled me rotten, so.
Yeah. Happy wife, happy life,
Yeah.
guys. However, we'll talk about that a little later.
Yeah.
Because
we will.
It isn't a matter of just pleasing someone, but it doesn't hurt.
No, it doesn't.
especially when it comes to shopping.
Right. So, as far as my website goes, I did work on that this week. Made some good strides with it too. It's taking longer than I'd anticipated, but that's okay. I'm enjoying the process of getting it rolled out and just kind of putting it together, and it'll come when it comes.
That's right. I think like you told me, you want to do it right. You don't want to just put something half put together out there.
Right. I don't want to just slap it together and throw it out there. I want to just put it together the way I want it to be so that I can tweak it as updates come, but not have to keep putting it together. So, yeah.
That's good.
So tell us about you. How about your music?
Well, I didn't put anything out on YouTube this last week. It just didn't end up happening.
Didn't happen. Yeah.
We have been talking about working on some meditation music together. So for her website, she would do a meditation and I would do kind of soft piano music in the background and come up with different meditations. So that's something that we're talking about, and we may want to look to put on the website so that people have a tool. Now,
I think that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm excited to do it with you. Just to collaborate on this, it'll be fun.
Exactly. Why not together?
Right.
So that's something that I think will tie in as you get further along in your website and in business and you're helping people, kind of open up because.
Well, yeah, and people have been asking for a meditation CD from you for a while. Right. So 2 birds, 1 stone, right?
Yeah, we eventually could make a CD out of it for sure. But it's it's definitely something that I think it's time. So
I agree.
so we'll just own together. So it's exciting. You know, we're excited to do this together, and really, you know, from the very beginning, and we started this podcast YouTube channel now 6 months ago. This is our 26th episode. So
Wow.
6 months ago, we finally took the plunge, and we haven't missed a week.
No.
And it's been a great ride.
Mm-hmm.
It really has. It's gone different directions, but hopefully entertaining for our watchers, as well as helpful for us as we continue. You know, I mean, we're wanting to make progress, and I think we are on and doing some of the things that we love to do,
Mm-hmm.
and not just have our Monday through Friday jobs, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, so I think we're definitely getting closer and closer to having more of what we really want to do.
I agree.
You know.
I agree. One step at a time.
Well,
Yeah.
and what's interesting, when we started this journey, COVID had just started to ramp up.
Right.
You know, the whole coronavirus.
Yeah.
And here we are 6 months later with it, you know, hasn't gone away at all.
No.
And we love to travel, and we've just decided, for the most part, except for a day trip,
It'll come.
you know, we're just putting that on hold.
It'll come. Yeah. Right now, it just needs to be on hold. But the time will come when it will open back up to where we can travel and do the things that we're looking for.
Right, I agree. But in the meantime, it's an opportunity to maybe step back and take a look at oneself in a way that normally we don't have time to, because we're traveling, we're doing so many things, we're going to events, and I think that's uncomfortable for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an opportunity to really self-reflect, as well as, you know, look at how we're doing as a couple.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to our subject about balancing the traditional male-female roles, the yin and the yang.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a friend earlier or about a week ago mention, you know, it's something you want to work on. Not that it's a problem, but I think it's a challenge for couples to figure out that balancing
Mm-hmm.
act.
Where you sit within the dynamic of your relationship as well as within yourself, which we can get into. Yeah.
Right, and the traditional roles, like our parents and grandparents, right? I think of the 1950s, where the man or the husband was the breadwinner, and the woman of the home was
the homemaker,
right.
or you could say barefoot and pregnant too. You know, those roles change over time.
Well,
you know,
I don't think
it
I
used
could.
to be.
I don't think I could ever be barefoot and pregnant, but
Well, my point is that a lot of women, I think, now balk at the idea because of the traditional roles, because that's what comes to their mind.
right.
And it's just times have changed.
They really have, and I think to be stuck back in that is, you know, old school thinking.
Completely.
And to have a balance in a relationship, I think is, you know, I mean, I look at our partnership as a very equal partnership. However, there are times when one of us or the other needs to step forward.
Right. And there's times when the traditional, quote unquote, traditional roles do apply.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Because I can't get pregnant.
Me either.
Well, not now. But
Whew.
but it's interesting to talk about yin and yang, and I, you know, here in the West we're not as familiar with. Of course, most everybody has seen the yin and the yang symbol, the male and the female.
Right.
But it's much more than just a gender thing, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Because either person can be traditionally, I guess we should say traditionally, the male is usually more of the yang or the yang, and the female is more of the yin,
Right.
right?
Yeah. In fact, we were looking because it's interesting to take a step back and look at what that actually means, the yin and the yang. So we were looking at it. You know, the yin is the dark side. Sorry, not Darth Vader. The dark, and the yang is the light. But I mean, so just like everything, there's opposites, right? So, feminine is the yin, masculine is the yang, right?
Mm-hmm.
The yin is more passive, the yang is more
Aggressive.
active, aggressive. The yin is intuitive, but the yang is logical.
Right.
So it's interesting to see a couple other things. We already mentioned dark and light. You know, cold. Yin is cold.
Mm-hmm.
Yang is warm or hot.
Hot, which I associate with hot-tempered,
Right.
aggressive. Kind of makes sense.
Yin is soft.
Mm-hmm.
Yang is hard.
Mm-hmm.
How they work in nature. Yin is slow.
Mm-hmm.
Yang fast. Obviously, yin is the moon. Yang is the sun. So it's interesting. Even negative is considered, and I don't think we're talking about attitudes here, but the negative and the positive, the yin and the yang. So everything in nature
Balance.
is
It's all about balance.
is that balance, and I think it's important. I think to take a look in oneself
Mm-hmm.
first, before you balance in a relationship.
Right, and they say that if you're heavier on, because you have both within you. So if, say, I'm heavier on the yang, then I'm going to attract somebody who is heavier on the yin, or vice versa. But you want both of them to be balanced within yourself so that you're not siphoning off what you need to balance yourself off your partner or those around you.
Right. I think once you start doing that, you start draining the other person, and then you're
Right.
not growing yourself.
Right.
It becomes codependent,
Very, very much so. Kind of like an energy vampire,
which we talked about.
which we already talked about,
Yes.
but very much so, right?
Yes. So, the more I think both are important in a person,
Mm-hmm.
in a relationship. You can't just be all go
No.
go, because when that happens, you burn out.
Right. You'll absolutely burn out. Yeah.
Right. Or you can't just lay in bed all day, or be so passive.
Right.
Although you had more of a passive week. this
I
last
did.
week.
But I was still pretty busy, but
Yeah.
in a different way. I was internally busy.
Yes. But I think that's why we in society have the downtime. We can't work all the time. And if somebody works all the time, they're going to have health issues, right? They're always
Absolutely.
out there, pushing, bang, bang, bang. It could lead to, some kind of an event like a heart attack,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Not to mention your emotional stability is going to be off the charts.
Right.
It's not going to be stable. So
If you're demanding all the time and, do this now.
you
Yeah.
become short-tempered with those around you because you're just always on the go. You get stuck in that fight or flight mode.
Right, and I think the reason why vacations work or time off is important is because that helps balances the hecticness, I think, of
Yeah.
life in
Yeah.
general, especially in our culture.
That work-life balance is so important. Everybody talks about it, but putting it into practice is a totally different story, I think. So many of us don't.
Right, we really don't. So I think that's something week to week we could always say, well, did better this week than,
Absolutely. Yeah, we've been guilty of that for sure. Yeah.
Right, and then when one of us is really wound up, the other one tends to help.
You're right.
Why are you laughing? I'm scared to know why.
Because I'm just giggling because I usually get wound up at night. That's when I come alive. You know, I worked night shift for many years.
I think I had to go to work. It was like 2 or 3 nights ago, and she's just all over the place.
I was.
Oh my gosh, this is so great. This is exciting. I can't wait to do this and this. And I'm like, yeah,
I
that's
want
great.
to talk about it.
That's great.
And
It's
yeah.
it's after midnight.
I was wide awake.
I had to go back to work after being off for a few days, and I was dreading it. And she's all excited.
I'm like, I better leave, better leave the room, or I'm gonna keep him up all night.
And then 5 minutes later, I guess I better leave the room.
Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah. So you kind of pulled some all-nighters up till the sun came up.
I did.
Times.
A few times I watched the sun come up. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, now you gotta shift back to the rest of.
You sound really happy about that.
No, it's fine. I mean, it just. I just feel sorry for you when you gotta get up. Actually, I feel sorry for me when you get up in the morning.
Please, I'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, you will be. But I think in general, so, you know, we kind of talked about yin and yang and what those definitions are. So how we work on it in our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I think my goal, I tend to go on the yin side a little bit.
Yeah.
Even though, you know, I'm in touch with my feminine side, however you want to say it, but I tend to step back. You know, yin is also creative. So with my music,
Right.
with that kind of expression, I tend to go to that quiet place
Mm-hmm.
inside and think on things.
Right.
So that's kind of my tendency.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I do tend to have more of the yang. I'm fiery, and I just am. I always have been. And some of this, I think, is also learned behavior. Some of it's innately who you
Right.
are, and then some of it's learned. So I think just paying attention, because I also have a lot of the yin in me. But it's just about finding the balance and making sure that we're not off balance. If I'm leaning heavier on the yang, then I need to dial it back, right?
Right.
So, but yeah, I do. We're kind of flipped there on that one.
Which makes it interesting. I mean, you said earlier opposites attract. So, but one of the things I like about us is we tend to be evenly matched, because there are times where I'll grab the remote
True.
and
True.
I'll drive.
Yeah.
In fact, when we first got together, you were like, apparently the remote is
Yours.
I would just grab it and I'm like, oh.
He'd come take it from me. I'm like, what are you doing? You know, I was using that.
So it's a standing joke between us, like, who's going to take the remote?
Who's driving tonight? Yeah. Or driving the car.
Yeah, that's another one. We both drive differently.
Yeah. Oh, for
I
sure.
think you definitely are more of a yang driver.
I am. I like to go fast.
Yes, I nicknamed her Danica.
Yes, I like to go fast.
And she keeps, when I'm sitting in the passenger seat, she says, "You still pushing on that imaginary brake, Jim?" I'm like, no, just stretching out my leg. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah. I go to turn and he's looking behind him. And I'm like, yeah, okay.
I think sometimes, you know, driving is interesting because when you're so used to being in control and you're sitting in the passenger seat, it's just hard not to.
Yeah, it's about giving up that control too.
Right. So I think driving is interesting because and when you step back and look at this stuff, everything is, you know, either more on the yang or the yin side. It's interesting to look at. How about even cleaning the house?
Yeah, I think we do really well on that one. We really balance each other out. When I'm cooking, this is kind of funny. This guy comes up behind me and starts cleaning.
As she's
Sometimes
cooking.
while I'm using, I'll put a knife on my cutting board, I turn around and it's gone.
Well, I
Sometimes a little too much.
thought she was done with it. She's like, "Where's my knife?" I'm
I
like,
was using that.
"It's cleaned over there." No, and I think we tend to jump in together and just get stuff done. Like, I mean, either of us are a fan of laundry, right?
No, not at all.
So usually we'll just go, all right, let's get it done, and we'll
Jump into it together.
yes, and
Mhm.
do the folding and put it away, and so I think it's that give and take in the relationship that we keep learning. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say we got to figure it out. We just
Well, I think sorry to interrupt.
no, go ahead.
I think you have to adjust day by day, and because it is constantly changing, and making sure that you're balanced within yourself on both first.
Right.
Like we said before, because I really don't want to do that to you, and that's something that I need to work on, is stepping back a little more and letting you take the more aggressive approach.
Except when somebody cuts you off on them.
Oh, all bets are off when that happens. Sorry.
It's usually a white truck, too. Cuts
Always
her off.
white trucks. Always.
And so.
Yes. What is it with white trucks?
I don't know. And I think it's reading the other person. So it's a communication, verbal and nonverbal communication.
Yeah.
Because if you see that I'm, I don't know, on a yang moment, you're not going to come in all aggressive too.
No.
You
No.
know?
Then I'll just usually fall back. Yeah.
Right. Or give me space to just work it out, and I certainly do that when her yang moment is.
Chicken.
She was doing her hair earlier, and most of the time she gets very frustrated with
It gets really, you gotta understand, it gets really, really hot in our bathroom.
yeah, and then she's got the curling iron going and the blow dryer, and
In the shower,
and I'm like, okay,
I'm out.
I'll see you in a little bit. No, but in all seriousness, it's giving each other space, and I think allowing us that moment to work through something, whether we're doing it in a yin fashion
Mm-hmm.
or a yang fashion, I guess is
Mm-hmm.
the way to put it. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I would.
That's yang-tastic. That's a new word I just came up with.
Yang-tastic.
No, but I mean, and I think some of the lessons we've learned in our past relationships that's really helped us is how out of balance that was, right?
Very much so.
I mean, and so
Yeah.
when it's not in balance, it's just ugly.
And that's kind of what I was referring to when I talked about learned behaviors. I think past relationships definitely teach us some bad habits.
Right.
And we have to remember not to take it out on the person we're with.
Right. Well, and in my past relationship, I became very passive.
Mm-hmm.
I just sort of.
Are you more comfortable there?
No, I wasn't happy there. It just, I think that's what I adapted to keep the peace.
Mm. Okay.
So it was, and so I don't feel that way that I have to be with you. I mean, doing this YouTube channel podcast is one example, not being passive.
Mm-hmm.
I always felt like in the relationship I had to come home and just kind of be quiet. But when I was out there with people, then I could be this more open, happy,
More yourself.
more myself. I could be a master of ceremonies in a conference for a whole day and then come home and kind of close down. So I think it's allowing the other person to authentically feel comfortable to be themselves instead of them having to put a shell around them.
Right. Absolutely. I would hate to do that to you.
Right,
I would hate that.
right, and so that's learning from the past when things were out of balance. So, the fact that I think one of the things that we continue to work on is that we're very much accepting of who the other person is. We'll laugh about it, but I never have had to feel like I need to edit who I am, edit myself.
Good.
Around you.
Good.
Where
I hope not.
hopefully you don't feel like you have to
No.
aggressively take charge, or some of the things that you had to do to survive, right?
No, I think more than anything, it's that learned behavior. It's become a habit. And so, if anything, now that I can take that exhale and allow you to step forward more, I think it's hard for me, because this learned behavior of having to get louder or more aggressive to push through is become a habit with me.
Right.
So, same thing, just on the flip side, right?
It is interesting, and at work I've had to step forward and be more yang with being a regional manager, and
for sure.
So that has sort of helped me come out of my shell. It wasn't really my goal to climb the ladder like I have, so to speak, at DES, but that's helped me realize that I don't have to be this kind of introverted, quiet person. I know I'm not introverted, but I mean, my go-to is...
It's interesting,
yeah.
because you're so outgoing and quite loud at times.
Quite loud. I like how she said that so gentle. Quite
loud. It's just interesting that your actual go-to is more introverted.
Right.
Quite the opposite of the face you show.
Yeah, and I'm not quite sure. I think that, again, we talked about at the beginning, it's the yin and the yang inside. So I think,
right.
Because the yin is very much my creative side. It's tapping into what helps me perform a piece of music or write a piece of music, and that part. Yet the yang is, when I go out and perform in public, either
right.
music or running a meeting or
dealing with employees, discipline issues, those kind of things, right?
I know. So when I have to discipline her, it's not pleasant.
And I try not to laugh.
I guess you kind of outed me with that. Like, discipline my ass. Nuh-uh, no way. No, but I think this, as we move forward and as we go to some new roles eventually and maybe have our own businesses and stuff, I think that's something that, and one of the reasons we wanted to talk about it as we move forward in our new adventures, it's balancing this within ourselves, within our own relationship. Right.
It's definitely, about keeping your finger on the pulse and paying attention. I think it's something that we can definitely work on, both of us. And, as we relax into it, just figuring out where we stand on any given day. And if we recognize that we're feeling a little more of the yang, then we just bring more of the yin in, and just balance it within ourselves, and we'll notice that the relationships around us will go better. It's a good reminder, I think.
It is, and before we got together over 20 years ago, I discovered meditation. And I really feel like, because I used to, believe it or not, have more of an anger problem. Yeah, I know.
I'm trying not to laugh.
She doesn't believe me. And it's true, because I think what would happen is I would bottle up so much frustration.
I can see that.
When either the young kids didn't follow what I said, or, the dogs pooped in the wrong place or peed again, or, something would go wrong. And I think this is what happens. It would just,
That's all it took.
Right.
Was one little thing.
The trigger was more pronounced. And what's happened with the activity of doing more yin is I was able to, I feel like, get in touch with that part of myself that allowed to balance that aggressive yang so that it wasn't so easily triggered with you know, the smallest thing, like, you know, a red light or, you know, or whatever, or a pet or a child or any kind, you know, there's always a
soft breeze.
right.
Yeah.
There's 100 frustrations that can happen. Yeah, a soft breeze. But really, not that was all the time, but it would usually build up.
Yeah. Wow.
And it comes from being unhappy and out of balance,
Mm-hmm.
which is really what we're talking about here.
Right. Right. So what is it that you're working on now?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Yeah. Well, I told you mine. So what are you working on?
Well, so I'm working on stepping forward. I think what happens with yin is that you don't have those delineated border, like owning your yeses and nos, owning them. You don't want to have tire tracks on you, like you're always a yin person to be like, oh, you go first. Oh, no, you. You know, you're always
Like the people pleasing,
yes,
right?
which very good point comes from the yin. So to me, I'm looking at, I don't have to be rude or aggressive. I can simply say no,
Mm-hmm.
and be strong and have those healthy borders.
But you can do it in a kind way.
Right. So having that strong yang energy with balancing the you know, still setting my limits
Mm-hmm.
with any relationship at work, at the store, being kind. But you know, no, you can't cross this line.
Yeah.
Or you can't talk to me that way.
Yeah, very much like what I always told the kids. You know, you can say no without being a bitch, right?
Right.
You know, so true. It doesn't mean that you're being snarky. It just means no.
And I think the other thing is, you know, stepping forward and taking charge of a situation, and doing it in a way that, that is something I think that makes me feel, it makes that yang sort of, that, you know, that kind of squaring your shoulders in a good way, not in a prideful way, but kind of
Right.
like going, you know what?
I feel good about this.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think those two things is something I continue to work on in me, so that I'm a more happy, balanced person. And then I think the key, to what we're talking about here is that once we really own what's going on inside ourselves, we can help each other figure it out day to day. It isn't a cut and dry formula that we can say, oh, you know, she's yin, I'm yang, or vice versa all the time, because that's not necessarily.
Well, it's not even the way it's supposed to be.
No,
You know,
there's
it's
not,
not the goal.
no, there's no cookie cutter way. You
No.
know.
Mm-mm. No, and the goal isn't to be one or the other and to find the opposite in your mate. That's not even the idea.
Right.
Because then you're still off balance, and eventually you're going to burn each other out.
Well, and I think it really comes down to celebrating each other's strengths instead
Yes.
of trying to tear down those strengths to make yourself feel better.
And helping yourself and your partner find that balance within ourselves, within each other.
Right.
To do that, it only benefits both of you.
It really, really does.
And I kind of hear too, with what we're both working on, that we are actually leaning more toward the traditional family unit, marriage, you know, male-female roles. But I see that it flip-flops. It's interesting.
It is, but I'm okay with that.
I know you are, and I am too, and that's a good thing. But we just need to be careful to keep them in perspective. That's all.
And as long as we're communicating and really paying attention to the other person's feelings and being respectful, I think is the key on all of it.
Yeah.
Really being respectful. And, you know, right now I want to step back for whatever reason and honoring that.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like, why can't you step forward? And
No.
you know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
but that's what happens. That's you know, old relationships
Mm-hmm.
talking about. So it's a continue adventure, if I would, on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with each other and ourselves.
Yeah.
So pretty cool.
Very cool.
Very cool. So the quote we want to end with that we found we really
It's a
liked.
good one.
It's a poem by someone named Fulan, and we're not Fulaning you. No, Fulan. This is a really cool thing. It says, "Man moves between light and darkness, woman between darkness light. When the twain meet, time stood still in suspended space, and stars gasped in silence."
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
I
it is
love that.
beautiful. So speaking of gasping, a Sandyism.
Okay. Okay, I'm concerned.
No, so the one I'm picking there is, for today, is this one. Are you down with that?
Oh. Yeah.
Are you down with that?
You down with that? Yeah, I'm down with that.
So what are we down with?
That.
What do you come down with, right?
Yeah. Whatever that is.
No, yeah, so usually to be, you know, like, which he's basically saying, are you agreeing with me?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Down with that?
Yeah. It's always, I mean, it's a Sandyism.
It is.
It just always comes out.
It
So,
is.
so in yin yang, I think she's down with that. I know that I'm down with that.
Good.
So anyway, we hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we remind you to continue to make comments on our YouTube channel,
Yes.
Soren Pair, Why Not Together. Also on our podcast platforms, iTunes, Google Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Overcast, Castbox, all of those wonderful platforms. Continue to listen and like us and follow us.
Yes.
And we will continue to provide you great episodes and content, right?
Yes.
That are balanced yin and yang.
Balanced, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Please remember to like and leave comments. And thank you. It was good seeing you all this week.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. We'll see you next week.